Hey, what's going on in Los Angeles? Welcome to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network. Live on a Monday on YouTube, on LAFBnetwork.com, on Twitter, on Facebook. This is the Chargers edition of the LA Football Show. Excited to talk Bolts with everyone. Every Monday from 6:30 to 7, Jamal and I will be live talking Bolts ball. So, my man, Jamal, what's up, brother? How we doing? I know we just wrapped up some Rams talk earlier, but now happy to get in the Chargers. How we doing?
Absolutely. Doing great, Rye. I'm excited about this new forum that we've got going here and making this a Monday night tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we will still have our regular pre-recorded show coming out later in the week, Thursdays and Fridays. If this goes well, maybe we'll just do everything live, but every Monday, 6:37, Chargers fans will be live here on the Chargers LAFB YouTube channel, the LAFB Network YouTube channel. Like I mentioned, the website, Facebook, Twitter, all of it. So show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% bonus on your first deposit. Plenty of fun stuff to bet on with the playoffs coming up for basketball and hockey, with March Madness just wrapping up with the Final Four. All that can be done. BetOnline.ag. You get some free money with that promo code BELIEVE. Tell them Ryan Jamal sent you from the LA Football Network. So, Jamal, we got the Chargers are doing some good things, I think. I mean, first, let me ask you this, because we record Chargers last week. I had to, I talked solo kind of about it for a little while, but what's been your overall thoughts of this offseason so far for the Bolts? They, outside of Eric Kendricks, haven't done much out of within their own confines, but they have brought back some key pieces and Trey Pipkins and Donald Parham and others. So what's just been your overall angle and thoughts on the offseason so far for the Chargers?
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, it hasn't been bad. I think it's sort of a BB minus. I think that, obviously in many ways this is going to net out. I love the signings, for the most part, but right now for me this sort of nets out between Kendricks and Tranquil, right? Like that was sort of the trade. That was the swap. And
Yep.
given how valuable Tranquil was to this team, particularly in the last quarter, the last half of the season, and what he really meant to propel them to that playoff run and really get that momentum going, we'll see if Kendricks can sort of repeat that and even enhance that. Because now when you look at even asking price, right, it actually ended up being a much more similar number than I think we had thought in terms of where this was going. So it really ended up being kind of a straight swap. So I think for those reasons, much in the way, obviously the other LA team with the Rams last year, it was kind of a swap, Von Miller for Bobby Wagner. And, we were talking fit and all of those things. It feels like Tranquil for Kendricks was the swap. And, if it were me, I would want Tranquil to come back. But Kendricks is a former Bruin. Love that guy. One of my all-time favorite UCLA Bruins, and just everything that he's done with Minnesota and in the league. We'll see how it shakes out. But for now, I've got it as at about a BB minus.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think they've definitely. Well, I mean, let's start with Kendricks, which we've talked about before, but as kind of, we don't need to beat a dead horse and with the whole offering of Drew Tranquil or whatnot, but it seems like Staley especially basically decided just like, hey, I just like Eric Kendricks more, which, no disrespect to Drew. I think he was great for this team and we loved him. We talked about how we wanted him to be kind of our must bring back, but I don't think you can deny how great Eric Kendricks has been over his career. I mean, one of the best linebackers in all of football. I mean, if not for Bobby Wagner and some great years from Luke Kuechly, Eric Kendricks might be the best backer in football we've seen the last, 8-9 years. So he's certainly top 5. And yes, I know he's older, but still only 31. So you get a guy like that for $6 million a year. I think Staley just thought, hey, this is too good to pass up. And as much as I appreciate Drew and what he's done, I see this as an upgrade, which, that's what you want your coach to be able to say, is it's not playing love game or favorites or who do you really enjoy as a person, as much as relationships are important in this business. And Staley himself says that's one of the most important things. But when building a roster, especially a defense that has not been great since he's been here, you hope he has the cojones to kind of say, okay, I'm going to go get someone who I believe is an upgrade. And certainly he believed that. And am I ready to say I agree with that? Do you agree with I love Eric Kendricks, obviously the UCLA blood, love him.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think at his age right now, he is an upgrade, or do you think it's kind of a wash?
I think it's a wash. I love Kendricks. I think it's because of the age. I think there's just a lot of tread there. Once you're at that 31, 32, it's hard to sort of ask, these guys, at the elite level, particularly in more physical positions, to be as great as they were. So for me, that's my sort of one hesitation. But the one thing I will say, I love the fact that Staley is going to go down swinging on his own terms. And I think it's very clear that this is a make it or break it year for him. And I love the clarity of thought. I love the judgment. I love the decisiveness. I love what went into the decision making. Hey, do I agree with it completely? No, but I love the process by which he's sort of going about things and saying, look, this is what I believe as my guy. I need my guys. I need my vision to be absolutely crystallized on the defensive side of the ball because this is a make it or break it year for me. And so I think he's bringing an urgency and a decisiveness that I think maybe was slightly lacking in years past. He's really enhanced that and is going for it. So I commend Staley for doing this on his terms as he should.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at the rest, obviously league meetings going on right now. And, Staley, very poignant in some of those interviews about kind of what the expectation is for this year, as you alluded to, his belief in a guy like Aaron Kendricks. We just talked about his belief in, well, okay, let's start with this before I get, and I just, came to me because it's been like a week since we've talked about Austin Ekeler, Jamal. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Got to.
Brandon Staley said in his league interviews that, hey, the relationship is still great. We want Austin Ekeler back. We see a future with him. He's very important to this team, but we also respect what he's doing. I mean, let's be real. The head coach isn't involved in negotiation and money talks, but you have to still kind of play that political line where it's, say, I'm here to coach football, but I understand the business side of what you're doing. So any takeaways from that? I mean, obviously he wants him back. I don't know why you wouldn't want him back. But basically the fact that he said, hey, we still see a future. We've spoken, we've had a good relationship, but also understand what he's trying to accomplish. And we'll see. I mean, that basically didn't give a real answer of if Ekeler would be there on day one, because obviously he doesn't know either.
No, Ryan, I think it actually was quite a real answer. I think it was a very, I thought he kept it very real. I sort of compare the Austin Ekeler situation to a real estate deal. It's like, hey, I love this house and I love this house and nice small house with a beautiful view in the Hollywood Hills. And I love this house and I'm willing to pay $3 million for this house. But, if the seller believes the house is worth 10 million and your budget says and your judgment and your budget and everything that about the real estate market says this is a $3.5 million house, you say, listen, I wish you the best of luck. If you can go get 10, if I were in your shoes, that's exactly what I would do. So go for it. But just know that we're here and we strongly believe that this house is worth $3 or $3.5 million. And if you sort of come back around and we get on the same page, we still love this house. We want to buy this house. We want to live in this house. We want to raise our kids in this house. So it's a matter of you kind of coming around. And that's kind of how I see this situation with Austin Ekeler. It's like, listen, we want you to be part of this future, but we, given the market, given our understanding of salary cap dynamics, given our understanding of your position and the shelf life associated with your position and just everything we know about building a football team in the modern NFL, you are not worth what you believe you are worth. And so if you believe you are worth what we believe you're worth, eventually this is going to be a great situation. But you have to sort of go through that process for yourself. It's almost like, not to kind of keep throwing analogies, but it's almost like raising a teenager where it's like, you gotta have them get there. You can't just sort of tell them what to do because they're just going to rebel because you're their parents or whatnot. You have to sort of let them get to the conclusion that you want them to get to on their own. And I think that's kind of where Ekeler is. And so I think it's a very real answer that they really do want him, but he's sort of on delusional island right now. And if he can get some desperate team to pay him what he wants to be paid, go for it. Any one of us in Austin Ekeler's shoes would say, dude, go get the bag while you still have a shelf life in this league. And no one is going to fault you for that. And we're still going to have a great relationship regardless. But the reality is the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. And so once the dust settles and the market settles and maybe you come to your senses a little bit in self-awareness of where you are situated in this market and you want to come back, we're going to take you with open arms.
So in your opinion, is Ekeler on the starting day roster
Yeah.
from training camp?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
With his tail between his legs. He might have to change his number because he's going to have his tail between his legs. Maybe he's a number one, but he will be on
31.
The opening day roster.
He'll be 31. That's that
Yeah.
tail line, right? 30 instead of 30. No, I think so too. I totally get it. And did you listen to again, because we haven't talked, I guess, last week about it. Did you listen to his interview on the Green Lights podcast?
I did.
What'd you think? I mean, I've always loved Ekeler and the fact that he's always on tons of podcasts. He's always very vocal in the media. He's very honest. We met him at the Super Bowl. He came on our radio show. So I've always respected the hell out of him for just how available he is, I guess. But I mean, what did you think of the interview? Was anything surprising, or is it kind of just?
I completely agree with you, Ryan. I think that he's been such an accessible athlete. We're so grateful for him. He's been such a great guest on the show, on this network, on multiple shows on this network and elsewhere. He's always been so congenial, charismatic. This was the first time where he looked, I don't want to say like sour, but like his whole demeanor was a little bit different on a podcast. Usually he's very like upbeat, smiling, charismatic.
Bolt up. Let's go Bolts.
Let's go Bolts. Even when he was kind of talking about Herbert and, kind of his take on him going to the next level, he's always this like very confident guy, very like, radiating kind of good energy. It was the first time he was kind of sulking. He was sad. He looked depressed. I think he looks like a guy who's realizing that his market value is just not there. And he's sort of looking kind of like a desperate guy right now. So it was sad to see him a little bit, to be honest with you, just in terms of facial. I mean, I started a company in facial expressions and body language, Ryan. So I can kind of hone in on those things, particularly on a video conferencing environment. That's what my company did. So I really sort of honed in on that and noticed it right away that his body language, his demeanor was just very different, very negative compared to where it was. He was sulking a little bit. He was low. And he's kind of realizing he looked like kind of a desperate guy that's sort of realizing that the reality of his situation isn't going to be something that he was expecting. And he's going to have to kind of eat some humble pie and come back. So, great to see him on the pods and giving new media that outlet. But it was sad to see him not being himself.
Yeah, totally. And, I get it. Like if you just think of it from a employee perspective, right? You go to your boss and you say, hey, I this is what I've brought in. These are my sales number. This is this. Like, I think I deserve a raise. And the boss basically says, nope, we love you, but no, you don't. But you're welcome to shop around if you want. And you think, okay, well, at least I'll go shop around. I'll look at, other Fortune 500 companies, see what they'll offer. And you find that no one's offering more, maybe even less. And so then it almost is just an ego check. Like, am I as good as I think I am? Is my value worth that? And, it's unfortunate that the world can be like that and it can be a harsh reality. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that. I know I certainly have experienced that. Not that I've ever gone anywhere and demanded money, but I've definitely felt like I was worth more than what I was getting. And it just never came to fruition. And it can take a toll on you a little bit and it can be tough. And these athletes, it's no different. They're still human beings and they still, are at the end of the day, they're making crazy amount of money for what they do. And I think that's the separation and the part that is hard to see for fans, because it's like, why are you complaining? You're making $7 million a year when I'm working my ass off for $55,000 a year. But when it comes to just the market of what you're doing and what you're worth in terms of that relative business, then he definitely, to an extent, I understand where he's coming from. And, but unfortunately the market's dictating that running backs don't get paid that much, especially that we've seen the shift in top tier running backs, not named Christian McCaffrey, not getting either cut in Ezekiel Elliott or whatnot. So he'll be on the Chargers. I have zero doubt about it. Whether he gets a little, maybe a roster bonus or something out there just to like, hey, sorry, didn't totally work out, but we'll give you a little extra cake here to eat at the party. We'll see. But I
almost feel like that's worse, Ryan, where it's like, hey, we know you are looking for a $4 million raise, but here's $50,000. Like I'd almost rather not give him anything than do that, just because it's such a long walk from where he was looking for. And I think, I think everything is going to be fine. This is going to work out. The one thing, Ryan, that, there's a 1 or 2% of me that's a little bit worried is that I hope his self-confidence doesn't change. So much of being an NFL player is almost having irrational confidence in how good you are, right? I mean, it's sort of why athletes dress the way they dress and drive what they drive and live where they live, because you're always trying to feel like you're a superstar. You're trying to feel invincible. You're trying to feel like a rock star, because the reality is the deck is stacked so against you in this game in terms of getting hit, getting injured, and just the reality of the game. So you have to sort of play all of these mental games and, have this entourage around you to just feel like you are, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, whatever the case may be, and feel like this superhero because of what you do is so difficult. And now on the flip side, you go out to this open market and everyone's like, hey, you're really not that good to that money. And now you walk into training camp, not just humbled, but if you lose kind of that aura of invincibility, that aura of superstardom, that aura of productivity, that could negatively impact his performance on the field, because the line between success and failure in the NFL is so fine, and confidence is so precious, and it can come and go, and it's so fleeting. That would actually be my one concern. It's sort of that great quote, right? I mean, in sort of the history of philosophy with, Confucianism and whatnot, where it's like, if I think I can or I think I can't, I'm right. Right. And so, like, I just wonder a little bit about his self-efficacy going into training camp a little bit, the where this shakes out, and does that maybe erode his confidence a little bit and impacts his on the field performance.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, especially in any industry, but especially when you're the top level of your craft, like, emotional and confidence is so important and integral, especially, if we're just being honest, a guy that doesn't exactly have the largest stature, a guy that's smaller anyway, and has that going against him. Me, myself, being a guy that was small, 5'6" in high school, and I had to basically do everything I could just to, eat at the table, let alone, get any playing time. So that confidence is so key. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. So, Jamal, before we wrap up here on this live edition of our LA football show, Chargers Talk, the Chargers sit right now about 15 million per over the cap left. And obviously I'm guessing 8 to 9 million of that they'll need for draft picks. So we're looking at probably, 5 to 6 to play with. Do you think, so I'll ask you this, do you think they sign anyone else, 1 or 2 kind of mid-level guys? B, you don't even have to give me names, but what maybe positions do you see? Or C, do you see that more of a, hey, that's money they'll hang on to for some maybe potential mid-season acquisitions before the trade line, or if anyone gets injured?
Ryan, it's a great question. I think they're going to hang on to the money post-draft. I think they're going to need to see kind of how things shake out a little bit with the draft in terms of who they've gotten, what positions of need have they filled, have they made any draft trades to sort of move up and get a guy they really like, which will cost them more. So, if I was Telesco and company, I would say, well, I know I got 5 to 6 in my back pocket here for margin. Let me see how this draft plays out. And then on the other side of that, let's see where there's a position of need. What would be fascinating is, what if you got an OBJ for 2 or 3 million, and then you had another 2-3 million left over to maybe get a vet at a position of need? I could see something like that be a fascinating turn of events as well, given where they are and what they need at the wide receiver position, given how much Kellen Moore loves wide receiver number 3, wide receiver number 4, and so forth. So, could you go and play around with some vets, some big name vets? I know you and I have thrown around, the name of some great running backs. That market's starting to dry up a little bit as well. But I think post draft is where I would be. I don't think I would do anything in the next, 3 to 4 weeks here. I would play it out after the draft.
Yeah, I think that's probably a smart move. I think obviously we'd love to see a guy like Kyle Van Noy back, who's still sitting out there, and I think had a very good year, especially late down the stretch for this Chargers team, who was one of the top defenders for this team. Jalen Guyton, a guy I think they should bring back pre-draft personally, just because it gives them it doesn't pigeonhole them to needing that speed guy in the draft if they can get him back. And maybe that's something that they're just working through what number fits. I'm not sure what his market is outside of the Chargers. I can't imagine it being crazy big. But also we don't even know what necessarily his health is after missing the entire season with injuries. So is he back to that same level and speed that kind of justifies having him? It sounds horrible to say, but justifies having on this roster. That's kind of what he is
Right.
he would just be that speed guy that is able to stretch the defense, but at least allows them to not be forced to draft a speed guy unless they really wanted to. So those are two guys I'd love to see maybe before the draft. And then everything else you said, I agree with. I think you just see what happens in the draft, where the chips fall, what you still need, or what you would like, maybe not even need, but would be a beneficial signing to kind of, a cherry on top of a solid offseason. Maybe get that B- grade up to a B+ or an A- if you're able to draft well and then add one or two final vets after the draft with some extra cash. So, two other names I'll throw at you, Jamal, and then we'll wrap this up. In terms of receiver, we mentioned Kellen Moore. We mentioned needed the speed. One, Jarvis Landry. Is he a guy you see fit as all, or do you think he's a little past that? He's not necessarily a speed burner, but definitely a great slot receiver. Definitely a guy that's a great route runner and does have speed that you need, obviously, on the other side of 30 now. But is he a guy you could see being a fit?
I don't know. I think I think there's a little bit too much overlap between his game and Keenan Allen's game, and a little bit even with Mike Williams. So, and he doesn't do necessarily anything significantly better in any aspect of receiving than any of those guys. So, I think there's a little bit too much redundancy there. Obviously, you got to see how the draft plays out. If you really feel like you're bare and you want sort of another target, a little bit of an insurance policy, then you go there. But he's not jumping off the page for me because he doesn't complement the skill set of the wide receiving room that I already have. I think what you're really looking for is that complement. You've alluded to it. You want that burner. You want the guy who's going to just take the top off the defense. You want maybe a smaller, shiftier guy that's going to take a bubble screen and turn it into 15, 20 yards down the field. I think Keenan Allen is this incredible possession receiver, great route runner, great hands. Mike Williams is so physical, contested catches. So you sort of have that covered in those two guys. Now you need to sort of complement it with verticality and even with some smaller guys that, you can kind of get into some open spaces and really let them go and be twitchy and jukey.
So here's a final name that I'm surprised. I don't know if I've seen anyone say it really, but what about Marquise Goodwin? I mean, a guy that formerly ran a 4.27 40. Obviously, he's now not maybe obviously for those who know, but he's 33 years old now. So I doubt he's running a 4.27 now, but I think the guy is still lightning fast. And if you can get him for super cheap, because again, what people don't understand, these speed guys you're really using for 15 snaps a game.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
unless you're a superstar speed like a DK Metcalf, who obviously runs a crazy 40 time and it has different size and different intangibles you can bring. So he's on the field for every play, but a true burner in the sense like a Jalen Guyton was you're not out there for 80% of the plays. You're out there for 10 to 15 plays. And so why not take a flyer on a Marquise Goodwin that we know can blow the doors off in terms of speed, and they could probably get him for under $1 million.
Oh yeah, I love that signing because what do you have to lose there? Best case scenario, again, you're looking at tremendously outsized value for the contract. Worst case scenario, you burned $1 million. I mean, big deal. And you're also sort of going after a position of need, a guy who knows how to play in the NFL, a guy who's got the experience level over anyone else in this draft. I love that. That's genius, Ryan. I'm surprised that that's something that Telesco and company aren't thinking more of. And if they are, they're keeping a pretty tight lip to sort of make it happen. But that would be a match made in heaven for me.
Yeah, that's one that I think would be phenomenal and probably better and faster than Jalen Guyton anyway, which make a lot of sense. So we shall see. We'll keep you all posted on that, and obviously keep it at LAFB Network for all your Chargers news. The LA Football Show, Chargers Unleashed, all of our Chargers coverage. That's all the time we got for this live edition. Every Monday, 6:30 to 7, we'll be back talking Chargers football with y'all, and we'll be back obviously later in the week for a regular pre-recorded podcast. So for Jamal, Madni, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Thank you all for tuning in. Talk to you all here in just a couple days.